Welcome to Common Filth Radio, Episode 2. Thank you for listening to the first episode. Thank you for sending in your questions, and thank you for sending in your music. I'd like to give a special thanks to Ben and Jack. Ben provided that great video intro. He also has some music I will play for you in this episode as well. And thank you to Jack, who made this wonderful drawing for me, which I think looks like Trogdor on steroids, but I don't know if that was his inspiration. Thank you regardless. Jack also had a question for me. He asked who my favorite characters are from movies, TV, or whatever. I really like King of the Hill. I think that's the best show ever made. And so anybody from that show, any character, they're all really good. Given that half of the videos on this channel have to do with making fun of them, I was a little surprised to see the amount of questions about gay people that you all had, what I think of them, just gay-related questions. So hopefully I will never have to talk about it again after this episode. Here's the first of those questions. You're about to hear some clicking. There it goes. After gay marriage, transgender rights and the like are pushed and finally go through. What do you think will be pushed next and why? Robert sent in this question. I think that political homosexuality's future lies in its past. And by that I mean the acceptance and legalization of pedophilia. In 1972, the National Coalition of Gay Organizations created a platform. And at the state level, the second point they made on their platform is, this is a direct quote, repeal of all state laws prohibiting private sexual acts involving consenting persons, equalization for homosexuals and heterosexuals for the enforcement of all laws. They did not say adults. I know you people like to make the argument that, well, what do you care, two consenting adults? They didn't say adults. They said persons, which would suggest non-adults. And there is precedent for this. You go look up NAMBLA, Gay Rights March. Back in the early days of the gay pride parades, NAMBLA would have a float, or, they'd hold up the signs, whatever it was. And NAMBLA was a wing, a very serious part of the gay rights movement very early on. And of course they abandoned that, but I see it making a comeback. And there is precedent for that. I'm about to read to you an abstract from a study. I took this off of pubmed.gov, I believe. It's on ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. And the title of the abstract and the study is The Proportions of Heterosexual and Homosexual Pedophiles Among Sex Offenders Against Children, an exploratory study. This was published back in 1992. The important quote in the abstract here is this. Using phallometric test sensitivities to calculate the proportion of true pedophiles among various groups of sex offenders against children, and taking into consideration previously reported mean numbers of victim per offender group, the ratio of heterosexual to homosexual pedophiles was calculated to approximately 11-1. This suggests that the ruling proportion of true pedophiles among persons with a homosexual erotic development is greater than that in persons who develop heterosexually. So, yeah, I think that's where it's going, because at some point it was acknowledged, and it was a part of the movement. An article from the Telegraph written by Andrew Gilligan reads like this. Pedophilic interest is natural and normal for human males, said the presentation. At least a sizable minority of normal males would like to have sex with children. Normal males are aroused by children. The statement that pedophilia is natural and normal was made not 3 decades ago, but last July. It was made not in private, but as one of the central claims of an academic presentation delivered, at the invitation of the organizers, to many of the key experts in the field at a conference held by the University of Cambridge. I think it's pretty obvious what's coming next. can actually talk on Axis this question. The last question I was looking at the screen most of the time because I was reading like I'm now. The question is from Clarence. What is your opinion on homosexuality, and in your opinion, how do you think a homosexual should live in our times? That's my question. Yes, it is. My opinion on it is very simple. I don't like it. But what I dislike more is the fact that our generation, millennials, we seem to be accepting it as a virtuous thing to be proud of, which I think it isn't. Because I see through all the bullshit rhetoric of, oh, we're all the same on the inside, and I love who I love, you love who you love, what does it matter? You should recognize it as the same. When you divorce that rhetoric from what it is, it's really silly. You're essentially saying that anal sex is, we should be handing out pieces of paper that say, good job, you like to, you know. Okay, I don't have to say it. I'm trying to keep this PG-13 at a maximum. As far as how I think they should behave, I think they should behave in the exact opposite way that they've been. I've seen the pictures and footage from the various gay events that go on in San Francisco, and I wish I didn't. Yeah, I mean, they'll exist. Deviants will always exist. But let's not pretend that a very ugly part of the human experience, part of human nature, and in their case, it's a part of human nature that's subverted in the exact opposite of how it should be. I don't think that should be made anything to be proud of. I think the 2 or 3% of them, they're inching it higher to 3 or 4, but I think that's the true estimate. I think that small segment of the population that should blend in, because we'll be a lot happier for it. And we'll definitely be a lot happier if we stopped pretending that it was anything noble what they're doing. Because I read some Redditor who somehow found a woman to have kids with. They took their child to a gay pride parade. And, they made a post about it. Oh, I'm still an ally of the gay community, blah, 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 but could you tone it down a little bit? They're proud of doing unholy, unspeakable things. What do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're proud of? Think they're proud of holding hands and being themselves? Give me a break. So, yeah, it's those people that I really I can't stand because they have no idea what they're getting into. And when they're confronted with the true nature of what they're advocating for, they make excuses for it. So while I don't like the practice of it, I definitely don't like their fan club anymore. So that's all. Let me exercise one last homo demon. After this, I retire. No more homo demons. Anyway, this question was sent in by Andrew. He writes, as someone who displays regard for conservative values on marriage and society, how do you feel about openly gay people who promote no agenda and are functioning members of society? Do you think homosexuality would be an issue if they did not have the stigma of being incredibly flamboyant and decadent? I myself do not like homosexuality or gay pride, but I don't feel that it is my right to deny 2 consenting adults marriage. I would like to hear your opinion of my take on that. Thank you for the good question, Andrew. As far as apolitical and societally productive gays go, that part of them I respect, but what they do in the bedroom is, I find it gross. I've established that. But again, I don't think that if they're not letting that one part of them define the whole, then on a personal level, I'm sure I wouldn't have a problem with them. There's a very big difference between how I treat people on an individual level and how I view that group when individuals form some sort of community around a shared ideal. In this case, while I am friendly on a personal level with pretty much everybody I meet, I'm hostile to the idea of these people becoming weaponized politically. I've met Jews that I've gotten along with, I've met blacks that I've gotten along with, I've met gays that I've gotten along with on an individual level. But I realized that I shouldn't apply the personal to the societal, because we judge society based on average trends, whereas one of these people might be decent, but there's another one of these people that are doing something just really bad. So you could even be two people, three people, but what they do or what they don't do is thrown out of whack by what somebody else of their group is doing. We can't escape groups, which is why I think we aren't perfect individuals and that we just exist unto ourselves and exist to nobody else, no other group. Being apolitical and productive is something I can respect about gays who are apolitical and productive, but I cannot respect the fact that they do these things to their bodies, which I think is gross and harmful and shouldn't be done. And even with that in mind, I don't think that the people you brought up exist in any meaningful capacity. And I guess that ties in with the second sentence of your question, where you ask if I think that homosexuality would be an issue if they didn't have the stigma of being flamboyant and decadent. As far as political homosexuality goes, no, but again, I can't bring myself to respect that fact about them. So, yes, it is a problem, but it's only a problem unto themselves. With respect to your comment about not wanting to deny consenting adults marriage, you have to go back to the original purpose of marriage, which was to keep track of who is having sex with who. That way you know who the parents of a particular child is. Because it's easy to know who the mother is of a child, but it's not that easy to determine who the father is. And with marriage, they had a way to keep track of that. Now that we have contraceptives and DNA tests, there's very little mystery as to who a particular child belongs to. The real purpose of marriage is obsolete due to more efficient, scientific, accurate results. So what you're left with is either a show of commitment or social validation. Well, we have a very high divorce rate because of various factors which I won't go into. What you are left with is a means of social validation. It's basically a way to get Facebook likes. Look, we're getting engaged. Look, wedding photos. Stupid nonsense like that. Now you have non-gay people wanting to give the same quote-unquote happiness that they get from announcing all this nonsense on Facebook. If you need external validation for the decisions that you make, you probably aren't very happy with them yourself. Let's not forget that marriage is simply another word for matrimony, which if you look at the Latin root means mother making, or something close to that. No amount of social validation could ever make that possible for a gay couple. Hellas sent in this question. Do you think other pages share similar views to yours? Yeah, Humanity 3 and Happen Watch. There are some others, but it's difficult for me to remember exact names. Basically, anybody that shares me, anybody that shares statuses which might hurt somebody's feelings or offend somebody, which I think that in and of itself, the fact that things that I post can cause triggers or whatever they call it, is proof that we are a very weak people. And we've encouraged the weak to breed. But that doesn't have anything to do with Facebook pages, so So yeah, just look at the shares and see if any pages share any of the more political statuses. And another page question from Joe. Would you say that seeing all the cringe type stuff that you find that you post on Tumblristas and stuff like that on professional privilege checkers has a taxing effect on you? Does it ever drag you down in your daily life knowing these types of people exist and are becoming more prevalent? I personally had to unfollow that stuff. It was bringing me down, man. Yeah, same here. Um, like I said, I don't want to take it out on other people, but if you expose yourself to enough stuff, it does eventually define your daily existence to some extent. And it takes a while to recover from that, which is why Tumblristas goes through periods of inactivity. I just can't take I can't take a lot of it at once because when I first started doing it, I was going thinking of all the degenerate shit that I could possibly think of and taking screenshots of it, and it was eventually getting to the point where I was having nightmares and it was making my chest hurt, and I was just being very angry to people when I typically am not. And that's at that point I decided that I need to take it easy. I decided that too late, but it was better that I did, or else who knows, I might be dead by now. But I just can't think about it. If I limit myself, I don't think about it so much. And I still follow, like you said, professional privilege checkers. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, if you're here from any other means other than my Facebook pages, that's what we're talking about right now. The Facebook pages that I run and that I like and that I'm familiar with. Anyway, what was I saying? But yeah, it does bring me down quite a bit. So everything in moderation, because a lot of people, they just want everything to be clean, and I want to expose the underbelly. But if you stay there too long, eventually that filth just inundates your entire being. This question was sent in by Rob. What do you think of the culture surrounding drugs, and why is drug use glorified by mass media? Why do people think there is a war on drugs when I can watch some popular music videos on YouTube and see artists talking about how awesome it is to smoke weed and get high on MDMA and other shit? Why is this degeneracy not shamed? I know you made a few posts about smokers in the past. As far as why I think it's glorified, look at the people who make it. Like you said, mass media. Who's mass media controlled by? The you-know-who's. And no, that's not a conspiracy. You could go look at charts and see CEOs, basically the board of directors of every single major media outlet. It's run by the same tribe. I'd put the number close to 90%, but I can't be sure right now. But just look it up, Who Controls Your Mind 2013 or 2014 on your preferred search engine. Why they feature artists and writers who glorify this sort of thing is because the more people that are on drugs, the more people that are content, distracted, basically lazy and stupid. And that's ultimately what they want. They want to make us. Because passive people, which is what drugs make you, ultimately very passive. Because think about it, you can't do anything when you're high. You can just be high and enjoy yourself. So that's why it's a means of control. And why people think there's a war on drugs is because that's just a catch-all term for the DEA and their involvement in drug trade. Because there's a lot of money to be made in being a middleman, which is ultimately what they do. I have little doubt that they seize the drugs and they sell the drugs to other countries where enforcement of it is a little bit looser. I always have some wise guy making some stupid jab at me saying that I never knew any cool kids who had drugs when I was in high school or whatever. And, I don't respond to it because it doesn't mean anything, because I never had a desire to do any of that stuff. But I've seen what drugs do to people. I've had friends and roommates and family members who've fallen into the trap of substance abuse. And even things like pot. My roommate, when he smoked pot, he watched Adventure Time and acted like an idiot. He just wouldn't stop talking, and it was really annoying. But I and then you had friends that would come around, and they weren't doing much with their lives either because they were a slave to the devil weed. Why the behavior is not shamed? Because everybody, well, I wouldn't want to say everybody, but an alarming amount of people do it or have done it, or buy into the media propaganda that alcohol's worse than weed somehow. And I think anything in excess is quite bad for you. So I noticed that weed people can only defend smoking weed by attacking alcohol. It's like what's so good about weed in and of itself? They can't defend it on that basis because there's nothing inherently good about it. And I know tumors, it shrinks tumors, blah blah blah, but I don't think that there are many 16-year-old skateboarders out there with tumors. I don't think that it's exclusively medical for them. We have an alarming lack of standards, is what I think. That's why drug use is increasing. Nobody holds anybody to a standard. Because you can legislate this stuff into existence, but there'll be a reaction to that because you're drawing a line in the sand. Somebody can look and say, hey, look, they're doing that thing over there. And everybody will carry their signs over there. But it's harder to do that when it's a cultural pressure put on you to not do those things, because that's not written and that's not something you can really rebel against. So I think it happens slowly over time. You could say that changes in attitude towards drug use are organic, but people are very influenced by media, television, print, radio, whatever, unfortunately. I also think that we are increasingly susceptible to outside influence because we don't breed strong people anymore. I think the West has undergone several generations of dysgenic breeding. So it, it's both of those things, both increasing susceptibility towards outside influence and declining genetic stock. But the problem is now, so how we fix it, I really don't know. You may have noticed at this point that I've used a lot of the same names both in this episode and last episode, but most of these are coming from different people. They just happen to have the same names. So, nothing wrong with having common names. I much prefer it to these really stupid names that people seem to be giving their kids now. So, here's another question from one of those repeat names, Andrew. He asks me, what is your opinion on the new wave of traditionalism? Is it hypocritical to push the ideology while still using modernist technology when it benefits the individual? In what ways do you think traditionalism could both harm and redeem Western society? Modern technology, new technology, it's morally neutral. You can do with it what you please. And I think that these tools available to us can be used for traditional means. So if it's hypocritical to somebody out there, I don't see it myself. The new wave of traditionalism has popped up in reaction to the meaninglessness of a modern life. So, but what they're talking about, the ways that they want to go back to, people who practiced pastoral living, family living, being community oriented. That's just stuff that people back then did. Traditional people we see as traditional. So they didn't have a name for it. It's not traditionalism like it is to us. So technology, you could argue, does interfere with traditional living, but it's only it's only a hindrance to that goal if you allow it to be. Um, I don't think anybody's arguing that we should go back to the printing press or typewriters when we have more efficient ways of doing the same thing. Using technology to build a rich social life, I think, is counterproductive, which a social life is really key to traditional living, I think, face to face interaction. So if you allow Facebook and whatever to replace that, I think that technology can get in the way of traditional living. The present state of our culture certainly doesn't help us make a return to more traditional ways of living. Women are discouraged from family life because they've been convinced that it's degrading somehow, that staying in the home and taking care of your children is not empowering, but going to work for some asshole for 40 hours a week, making him rich, is empowering. With regard to men, we see a lot of hostility towards wanting to settle down and start a family because we don't really have any strong figures in our lives that taught us how to do that or led us in that direction because of atomized communities and weak families that we may have come from. And the quality of women has declined, as in the quality of men. I mean, if there wasn't a quality decline across the board, we wouldn't have this problem. While a lot of women are not really marriageable and can't be trusted with that, there's just a lot of weak men out there too that are impossible for women to respect. I think that traditionalism would be the best path, but at this point, I think that it's, for lack of a better term, trying to squeeze a round peg into a square hole. We don't have the strong population to make a return to that, to make that work.
Get out of your seat, step up to me with your squad and your team. You ain't nothing but a squawk and it's weak. You know you're rocking the beat. Send your whole crew to be lost at sea. Don't fuck with the cut that'll bleed. I'm a bit too much for your dreams. I'm a nightmare, I'm also pretty mean. Not one to lean on the wall, but it'll help me break up the fall. Bounce back and forth like a ball. Pass me to your boys so they can get a jaw off.
It's time to answer some questions in rapid succession. And it's not because they're bad questions, it's just that they don't take an incredible amount of time to answer. So let's answer a few of those. Got another question from Oversized Spoon. What the fuck makes people feel so goddamn entitled to just about everything? I've come up with several conclusions, probably some that are going to be similar to yours, but it would be pretty interesting to hear about it. Most people go to public school, where they're taught that you're special. Media tells you that you're special. Everything basically tells you that you're an individual, you're not a part of a greater story, you're just a small piece of the puzzle. I think that if people had to face that harsh reality, they'd freak the fuck out. So they don't. And I think that being entitled is simply a manifestation of them ignoring their sameness, as it were. So when you think that you're some unique individual, you think that you're entitled to more because why not me? I have all these incredible gifts because people tell me that I'm good. And it never occurs to these people, like, they probably don't make an incredible amount of money. So what is America's GDP? Like 15 trillion or something like that? Wouldn't it occur to them that if they were special, they'd command a greater percentage of that pie? I don't know. Maybe if they thought in terms of measurables, mathematics, economics, they would recognize their sameness and that they aren't very unique. But they don't. This question comes from Seth. You're the first Seth to ever be on this show, so congratulations. Seth asks, What do you think of the current trend of diversity for the sake of diversity in politics? Obama's landslide win, Clinton's current popularity, not talking about leaders, just talking about leaders, but society in general. Yeah, we've allowed in a lot of immigrants, so people think that America's always been this great melting pot when back in the 80s we were very white. Um, it's only been in the last 30 years that we've become less white, so. And you have a lot of weak white people, more proof of our declining overall stock, that they think that's a good thing because somehow, I don't know. I think we're all familiar with the platitudes they like to use that white people are inherently wicked and we need good Mexican food and all this bullshit. So I think that that attitude manifesting itself in politics is just a natural extension of that. Frankie wants to know, if I became the president, what would be my first course of action and how would it better the country? I'd close the border, put a moratorium on all immigration, and deport all immigrants who are here illegally. I think that the economy would immediately improve. I think that a slight minimum wage increase would then be possible and beneficial. And yeah, that's all. I think that is the biggest problem that we have now. What's the worst thing you've ever seen? Danica sent in this question. Anything that I saw in the early days of Tumblristas, I really regret looking at some of the things that I did, and they scarred me for some time. It's true, once you see things, you can't unsee them with regard to specific things, so I won't go into the specifics there. Again, trying to keep it PG-13 at a maximum, so hope that answers your question adequately. I think I've answered this question in a very long roundabout way throughout the episode, but I said I'd answer this, so I'm going to keep my word. This question is from Jack, which I think is a good name. Any name that's one syllable is very butch, very manly, very cool. He asked me, why do you think the moral decay of America has been speeding up so much these past few decades? I am aware that every generation always seems worse than the one before, but people today show off the fact that they smoke, drink, do drugs, commit crime, etc., without any signs of them acknowledging what they do is foolish. Yeah, I mean, we put our values into all the wrong things, as we discussed earlier in the episode. At the very beginning, we have a declining quality of people due to either media influence, cultural influence, or just promotion of breeding amongst people that shouldn't be breeding. The decline in quality of the common man is why I named my website and this podcast what I named it. A lot of what I view is viewed through that lens. Close to 100% of you are listening to this because I promote it on my pages that I run. So I get a lot of page questions and I like answering them because it's probably what I know best. So here are a few page questions to close things out for this episode. Trev sent in this question. What do you think of your fan base? I know there are almost 10,000 of us now, but do you ever have a scroll down the list of likes and comments, and do you believe that you've reached the audience you initially intended to reach? Did you even have a target audience in the first place? Also, what was the thought process, and what motivated you to create this community? I didn't have a target audience when I started this, and the fact that I have 10,000 just a little over a year later after I started the first page, that number exceeded all my expectations, and it continues to do so. So now that I have this popularity, it's like, well, shit, what do I do with it? So why not start a podcast? So I think I'm doing the next step, and I got some exciting things coming down the pipeline, which I'm not going to talk about yet because I don't want to jinx myself. I guess you consider the fact that I wanted to be around like-minded people, wanted to give content to my like-minded people. I guess that's kind of a target audience, but beyond that, no target audience, and I think I've succeeded. I get the occasional asshole. It's usually like one person everything I post. Posting some snarky bullshit. Not really refuting what I said, just, you'll see them. I usually delete them because they're just stupid. But as for what motivated me to create this community, I didn't expect it to be a community. It was just a page. I thought of a name while on Skype with a friend, and he's like, hey, that's pretty funny. And he shared it a few times, now defunct page. And that's how it came to be. And people just created pages. I made friends with other pages and met a lot of cool people doing this. I never expected people to flock to this like they did. But I think it's really cool. It sprang up organically. It was not a calculated creation on my behalf. Shay wrote me this question. One question I had for you is your opinion on those who are quick to report on photos, posts, etc. Or actually, I should ask, how do you manage to avoid and sidestep the danger of having the page taken down due to these folks? Or maybe just your opinion on the trend lately of just resurrecting pages and then tacking on a number to it. Well, I don't know anything, any other page beyond Humanity 3 and Friendship 2 or whatever. If that's a trend, I think it's pretty stupid. If you want to sidestep the danger, as you put it, of having the page taken down, even anything mildly controversial, take it down after 10, 20, 30 minutes, depending on how bad it is. If it's really bad, take it down after 10. If it's in a gray area, take it down just to be sure. That's how you avoid it. There's some stuff that I should have taken down on the first Full House memes that I didn't, but hey, it's worked out in the end, so no regrets there. The people who report the stuff that you post they're usually probably sad, lonely people, or they're working for somebody. There are certain groups out there that actually hire agents to go troll various pages that they disagree with and report them and try to get taken down. But yeah, just protect yourself. That's the only thing you can do. And with that clears my list of questions for this week. Last week I didn't get through all of them because I ran out of time. So give me a lot of questions this week. I wanna have a lot of work to do, more than I can complete in a week. So keep sending in your questions, and if you have music, send in your music. Give me your permission to use it, and I'll put it in. And thank you for listening. Tune in next week. And here are the names of the artists who provided their content for this episode. Video intro made by Local M. Introduction music by Alfie Eastwick. Interlude music by Based 404. Silent Heretic. Shifting Blues. Icarus Complex. Lanza Manza. Skywoot. Ending music by Dubious Disc. Episode artwork created by Jack Mork. All links to artists featured on this episode can be found in the links below.